Where do you spend your time, money, energy, effort? We talk about that today and really dive into what happened with Zillow's closing services to see what lessons we should learn from that and implement in our own business. Welcome to this week's episode of the Whissel Way podcast. Kyle, in 2019, Zillow launched a couple pretty unique programs. They launched Zillow Offers. They also launched their Zillow closing services, which was title, escrow, closing services, right? We know Zillow Offers closed down a year ago.
Roughly, yeah.
They just announced that they're ending their closing services.
You didn't want to say they're closing their closing services?
They're ending their closing services. And so I want to kind of talk about that today on today's podcast. What does that mean? What can we learn? And how should we move forward in the market with this knowledge?
Cool. Yeah, we can definitely hit on that. I think there's some very valuable lessons that we can learn from their experience that we can apply to our experience as agents. So I'm excited to dive into it today. And welcome to the Whissel Way podcast. My name is Kyle Whissel, your host with eXp Realty here in San Diego.
And I'm Bryan, Director of Marketing here at Whissel Realty Group.
The goal of the show is to give you the tools, techniques, and tactics to go out there and crush it in your business. And the way that we like to do that is to answer the questions that you have for us. So if you ever have a question, you can always go to thewhisselway.com. In addition to asking us questions, you can subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel. You can join our referral network for all the people leaving California. You can get dialed in with our private Facebook group and email newsletter where we share a lot of tips and tricks. And if you're looking to up your video game, you can take our Media Mayor Mastermind course on there. We'll share how we've established ourselves as the local experts here in San Diego. All of that at thewhisselway.com.
So Zillow closing offers. They wanted to be like I saw a quote. I looked at a lot of articles and they were all hidden behind a paywall. Not all of them, half of them were. But from what I saw, there was quotes saying they wanted to be kind of the Microsoft Office for real estate, having everything all in one. The goal is to help simplify the process. We know the real estate, buying and selling real estate is complicated. And I think, I will put some words in Zillow's mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they say, hey, it doesn't have to be as complicated as it is. How can we make this simpler for the consumer? How do we make this a better experience? What can we do? And so they launched a bunch of programs. Some are still... their website is the number one real estate website
in the world.
But they also launched several things that they said, hey, this wasn't the right fit for us. One being Zillow Offers, now Zillow Closing Services. From one article I saw, they said they announced this, and then their stock hit a 52-week high on June 28th. So right after they announced this, or right after this news came out, their stock went up. And I don't think that was the case when Zillow Offers went down. I don't know, but I don't think so.
I'm trying to remember back when it did, but I think it probably went up because they were losing their face off doing it. So I think Wall Street was probably like, oh, good, you're not going to keep losing money doing this anymore. We like this. So I would actually be surprised. I don't remember what it did, but I would be surprised if it went down. And if anything, I think it might have went up. Oh,
okay. Well, this did better.
Yeah.
It had a 52-week high. I wonder if 53 weeks ago they shut down Zillow Offers. That might have been why it's not 53 weeks. But so all that being said, what can we in the real estate industry take from this?
For sure. So I think I get the idea of what they wanted to do is try to provide that end-to-end experience. That's what everybody wants to do. Everybody is trying to solve. If we can build this end-to-end experience for people, it's more seamless, it's easier, it's smoother, and it's just an overall better experience for the consumer. So I respect the effort. There's a lot of companies that have been trying to do this. Keller Williams, years ago, they said, hey, we're no longer a training company, we're a technology company, and we're going to provide an end-to-end experience. And Compass, came out and has set a goal to do the same thing. And I think that both of those companies came to realize that it's way harder to build the technology and it's way harder to get the adoption of the technology or the services than people expect. And I think that is very likely what Zillow ran into, is getting the adoption of their closing service, I think, was harder than they expected. And I think, a big thing, and I don't know how this is in every market, but here in San Diego, the escrow companies typically have reps that their sole job is to come and build relationships with you and add value to your business. And same thing with title, right? And again, some states you guys don't have escrow. It's all one and the same. Some of you guys have attorneys. So obviously just adapt this to your local market. But here in San Diego, we have escrow companies and title companies. They're two separate things. Sometimes they can all be under one umbrella, but they're separate companies. And so most of these companies have people whose sole job is to go build relationships. And I think that was something that Zillow probably didn't account for as much as they should have. I think they looked at, hey, we have the relationship with the agents because we provide them with leads and opportunities to make more money. So because we have the relationship with them, that they will use our services because of the relationship. So they saw that side of the relationship. So I think they were thinking on the relationship side, but I don't think the adoption, they understood how hard it is to get the adoption of things. And again, so many people underestimate that. They think it's going to be much easier than it's going to be but they don't think about how hard is it going to be to get people to adopt it? Yes, you can build a title company, an escrow company, a tech platform, but getting people to adopt it, that's the real challenge.
And you think that's because relationships?
I think that's a huge part of it, yes. Okay. I think we have escrow reps and title reps that have been coming into our offices for years, and we'll sit down with our agents and pour into them with everything they legally can. And now I understand in some states, legally, they can pour into you with like box seats to the football game. Like we can't do that in California. You used to.
Let's move to those states.
Yeah, Arizona, what's up? So some states, they can just buy your business. But here, which probably for the better, that was stripped away from most of these companies years ago. So they couldn't buy your business anymore. They truly had to earn it. So a lot of these reps have tried to figure out, what can I do to pour into people? How can I help them grow? We have a rep that was in here recently that was, sharing, hey, here's how I saw that you're flipping houses. Let me show you what I can do to help you get more at bats, more flip opportunities. Like that's adding value. And he's not paying for anything or buying anything. He's just sharing, hey, somebody else was doing this and I thought it would be valuable, so I wanted to share with you. Like that's a lot of value. And if he can help me acquire another handful of flips a year, like that's a multi-six-figure thing to me. Like that's really valuable. And so the relationships, I think, that we all have as agents, I think that's an area where they probably didn't account for that and account for how much work it was going to be to get us to leave those relationships to go use their services.
Now, so this is really interesting. I see people, Zillow is very polarizing with agents. I think as a whole, consumers really like Zillow.
Absolutely.
I mean, I use it when I'm looking. Someone said, "Oh, I went to open a house." I opened the app to see what open house they went to. I think as a whole, consumers really, really like it.
Yeah,
and I think they're
the number one website by a hefty margin.
Yeah, and I think they Zillow, their website, they're always constantly thinking of how can we make it better for the consumer. That's why they went to things like Zillow Flex to make sure the phone calls get answered. Like lots of reasons. Okay, cool. Agents are very polarized. Some agents are like, hey, I use it. I make a good ROI on it. Let's go. Some people say Zillow's the devil. I hate it. They're taking our business. They want to be me. They want to put me out of business. I'm curious if their idea was to go in with the relationship play, how much that made a difference. Does that make sense?
Just the fact that right out of the gate, let's just call it 50%, right? We talk about this with video, right? Like so many people are scared to shoot video because they're afraid of people judging them and not liking them. Like the reality of it is 50% of people aren't going to like you no matter what. If you're Tom Brady, right, one of the best football players in history, good looking guy, like people are just not going to like him because of that. Even though he's a good guy, he's philanthropic, all this stuff. By the way, I don't know if you heard, he might be hooking up with Kim Kardashian. Imagine that.
Oh my goodness.
That might be happening. But
Hey,
like,
you do you.
people are naturally gonna, if he hooks up with her, people are gonna hate him even more, right? Like,
Or love him even more.
right. But it's just, we're polarizing. And if you fly politically, the red flag, people with the blue flag don't like you, and vice versa, right? Like, your beliefs on abortion, on like gay marriage, all this stuff. Like, it's just, we're in this society where, like, no matter what, a percentage, a lot of times it splits politically, it's almost right down the middle, 50-50. Like, that's just the society that we're in today. So no matter what Zillow does, it's like 50% of agents are gonna be like, F Zillow, they're coming, like, and then the other 50% are gonna be on the other side of it. So I think no matter what they do, they're gonna run into that same scenario. And I think, many things in life are that same way.
So what can we learn from this? They ran it for 4 years.
Yeah.
Obviously didn't work because they closed it down.
Didn't work as well as they hoped, or
Okay.
maybe they had other opportunities. I mean, I've stopped doing things that were working because they weren't working as well as I wanted. They're still working, but not as well as I wanted, or there's a better opportunity that came about, and it made sense to divert either time or energy or money to other things. So just because
That's fair.
somebody shut something down doesn't mean it wasn't working. It just, there's a variety of reasons you shut something down.
What can we learn from it?
So relationships are everything. I think that, right, we talked about, that's one of the reasons why I think this didn't work out as well as they might have hoped, is that trying to break my relationship with my escrow rep that I've worked with for the last 6 years and is gone to bat for me numerous times and helped me with notaries at odd hours and done so many things for me over the years, to, like, for me to leave that person, it would take something really big for me to leave somebody. So I think understanding how valuable relationships are, because we don't value those enough in this industry. So many agents get so transactional when they need to be more relational. And I think that's a huge mistake most agents make. Let's think about going out and creating relationships, like, in all things. Like, if you want to go chase deal to deal to deal the rest of your life, like, you knock yourself out. But if you can think about, how can I create a relationship with a probate attorney, right? Who's going to run into probates. People are going to die forever. It's one of those things that's inevitable. Having that relationship with a probate attorney or a divorce attorney or a bankruptcy attorney, like, think about having those relationships. Like, do you have a relationship with each one of those? And we talked about it on our, we do internal masterminds with our agents last week. And I was talking to my veteran agents, and one of them wanted to build some relationships. And just like we're talking about Zillow, there's a Zillow equivalent, or I don't know if it's the biggest or not, but it's called AVO, AVVO. Here's a little tip for you, AVVO. And you can go on there and you could say, like, hey, I'm looking for a probate attorney in San Diego. And it's going to show you all the probate attorneys with rankings, with profiles and reviews and all this stuff. And you can then there's your hit list. Like, here's all the top probate attorneys in San Diego. And then I was like, as a real estate agent, we run into probates. So shouldn't you have a probate attorney in your corner? So when next time you have somebody call you that's going through probate, you should have an attorney you should refer them to. So now call the attorney, set up a lunch with them. And my agent's like, well, what do I say? I was like, I don't know. Let's go into Bard, or let's go into ChatGPT. Hey, ChatGPT, I'm a real estate agent meeting with a probate attorney for lunch, and I'm looking to come up with 20 conversational questions that I could ask the probate attorney to learn more about their business. And it was like, here's 20 amazing questions. And then I was like, I'm a funny guy. I want to mix a little bit more humor in. Give me 20 more, but mix some humor in there. And then 20 more with some humor. Like, there you go. It's literally telling you what to do at the lunch with the probate attorney.
And then you write them down on note cards and you say, dearest sir or madam, next. Okay, very good.
So the relationships, that's to tie it back to what the question was, is understanding the value of relationships. Because if you can establish really, really strong relationships, those relationships can't be broken.
And I want to take it one step further. I love where you went with okay, let's think about, what do I need as a business and how can we work those relationships? But it's also relationships within people within your community, right? So volunteering or being part of organizations, or meeting the local restaurant owners or business owners. And then again, we talk about, look, you can always keep chasing new leads, or the best leads are referrals. So how do you build relationships with your clients throughout the process of helping them buy or sell. To not only will they use you again in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, but it was so good that they have to refer you to anyone they hear talking about real estate. That you can do without ChatGPT. You just do a great job.
Yep. Absolutely. And then second thing is I don't know if you guys know, do you know who Walter O'Brien is?
No.
Dude, this guy, have you ever seen the show Scorpion on CBS or heard of it?
No.
Okay. Walter O'Brien is like one of the highest IQs ever recorded in the history of the world. This guy's like insanely smart. Very unique guy, right? His IQ is like 197, which is I think the 4th or 5th highest IQ ever tested in the world. I was watching something on YouTube. I was looking at a video with my buddy Kent Clothier on it, and then it happened to be a 2-part video with Walter O'Brien being the other part. And in this video, they talked about an investment strategy, and there's multiple variations of this, but like your variation of investing and mine are going to be very different. So there's strategies.
I think it's the exact same thing.
Like a 70-20-10 investment strategy or 40-40-20. There's multiple variations, but it ultimately breaks into 3 buckets how you invest your money. And so you kind of have your very safe and conservative bucket, your moderate bucket, and your aggressive bucket. Right now, yours, we're gonna tilt very differently.
0.
That doesn't add up to 100, Bryan, but it's okay.
I keep 1% in my mattress.
So you talk about how you diversify your investment strategy, but it's also we should think about how we diversify our business. Right? We shouldn't be all in on any one thing. So the 40-40-20 strategy in investing, the 20 is like your very risky things, like angel investments, crypto, NFTs, these things that like they could go to the moon or they could go to 0, right? Like that's your 20%. I think this was Zillow's 20%. This was one of those things like, hey, we have our very safe and conservative bucket. We have our moderate bucket, but 20% of the time, like let's be trying things. Let's dabble in this. Let's dabble in that. Gary Vee, I think, talks about this too with like social, right? Like Threads, which we'll talk about more later. Like you shouldn't necessarily go all in on that, but like you should dabble in it, right? And then if it takes off, at least you've been dabbling in it and it goes really well. Same thing like an angel investment, right? Like dabble in it, do a little bit of it and expect it to be prepared for it to go to 0. And I think that that's a strategy we should have in our business is we should have, again, play around with your numbers, 40-40-20. You should have 40%, which is your tried and true. This works 100% of the time. What would that be? For us, we have our core 4, which is your sphere of influence, your social, with your effectively ties into your sphere, open houses, and our leads, right? Like that's our 40%. That's like your core. Then your 40% is your moderate. So then it's like, okay, my other strategy is like I'm gonna go after expireds or I'm gonna go after attorneys or whatever. Like your moderate. There's a little bit of risk there. And then 20% should be like, hey, there's this new thing. Like let's play around with this. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. And if we get traction, boom, to the moon. But we could try it and it could bomb and go nowhere. And it's okay to fail. I think sometimes we have such a heavy fear of failure that we won't try that 20%. But sometimes that 20% can be huge. That could be like flipping, right? Like I relaunched a flipping division at the beginning of the year. That's done amazingly well. Like there's risk though. Like that's my 20%, right? Like it's a risky thing, especially in the market to like start flipping when the market was shit in January. Lo and behold, that happened to be the bottom of the market. But that was a risky thing to dive back into that. But now every property we bought, they're selling for well above what we thought they were going to. So you should play around. What's your 20%? Maybe this was, I don't know this, but maybe this was Zillow's 20% of let's take some risks.
The other thing that I kind of want you to talk about, because I like what you're talking about, not for me, but for other people taking some risk. I think if you as a real estate agent are looking to say, hey, I'm going to take some risk here and try out this service and maybe replace your title and escrow with Zillow closing services. And if you know, hey, this might be a little risky, can you talk a little bit more about building your bench and kind of having a backup so that way when closing services goes away or when one of your lead pillars goes away, you're not left on an island?
I think that's why you have the diversification, right? You're not 100-0. Again, for you, you're 100-0-0. 100 on safe and 0 on moderate and 0 on risk.
Can you do minus on anything?
Brian's like, I'd like to go over 100 on conservative, please. So I think that's the key is, again, you try these things and see where they go, and they might take off, but you should still have like your tried and true, which we do that even with closing services. Like we have our tried and true, but there's a couple other things out there where I'm like, hey, let me dabble here, let me dabble here, but I have kind of my tried and true. But if my tried and true fails, I have a couple other relationships out there as well. And so if relationship A just disappears tomorrow, I have relationships with B and C that I've already established that, I can foster, that can come and backfill that.
Now, Zillow, when they try and do these things, they try and do them on a national level. Usually they start in a few areas and then it grows, right?
I don't know if they did closing services nationally. I don't know. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
I
but
looked at
most of their stuff they pilot in different markets. Like Flex right now, they've flipped, I think, 6 markets so far to like fully Flex. Mm-hmm. Zillow Offers, I think, went to 20-something markets. Like, they never made it nationwide. So they, for the most part, they do start with a couple beta markets and roll them out from there.
Okay, that's a good point. Is this a cautionary tale for maybe it's a team, right? Probably not a team of 3 people, but a bigger team to start opening up and branching out where legally they can into mortgage and title and escrow and bringing them in-house to kind of have this all-in-one solution? Is this a cautionary tale, or is it Zillow's very smart, they've got a lot of money, but maybe they spread too thin? Maybe it's those relationships where you go, I already have relationships, my team agents will use my people. Is this something that should make people nervous, or go, yes, it didn't work out well for them as well as they wanted to, but I can still do it and make money and add a strong part of my business? I
think it should be a cautionary thing for sure. Don't go too wide. Right now, Zillow can go as wide as they want, right?
Correct.
Plus, they have massive amounts of backing, so they can go far wider, right? They can launch a title and escrow company and have it fail, and the stocks still go up, right? They're that big of a company. You're probably not that big, right? If you start to spread, because you hear like, and again, this is like, I've gone to so many less conferences over the last year or two, and it's helped my business grow. Because I'm not getting pulled in a million different directions and hearing people on stage like, oh, I run this. And like, for this, like, oh, I got a title company, I got a mortgage company, I got an escrow company, I got this. Like, and then you come back from the conference like, oh my gosh, guys, I'm going to do all these 500 things. Like, and then you half-ass all of them and they all flop. Like,
well, you give it to us and then we don't understand it. And then 3 months later you go, oh yeah, forget about that. We're doing this now.
Yeah. So honestly, think about this. You've been with me for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not coming to you guys all the time with all these fucking ideas, because I'm not going to these conferences hearing about all this stuff and I shot a video recently, like, I'm going to be very real with you guys. Like, there's a lot of people that get up on these stages. They have imposter syndrome. They don't think they belong there. So then they bullshit and they lie on stage, or they embellish. Like, a lot of them are great fishermen. A lot of people embellish things and make them into way more than they are, or they don't talk about like the downside, the negatives. Like, that happens all the time. And so, like, I mean, our buddy Brad, right? We were the San Diego event, the summit. There was a guy on stage who talked this huge game about all these deals he was doing in Louisiana. I'm not going to say his name. Was talking this huge game on stage. And my buddy ends up hiring him for his team, and the guy doesn't sell a house in 6 months.
Oh, I was like, what?
And he was on stage.
I know who you're talking about too.
Yeah. And on stage, this guy was talking about he sold like 20-something homes in his first 6 months. And so my buddy recruits him. The guy can't sell a home in the next 6 months. So like that is common. There's so many people that get up on these stages and just BS, right? They want that image. They want to look cool. And so not going to all these events like I used to, not hearing all these people that are distracting and taking my attention and focus away, and allowing me just to focus on my team, my people, and just the growth internally. And we don't need new things. Like, so many people, like, if you're watching this, listening to this, you don't necessarily need a bunch of new things. Like I said, maybe like 20%, like a little dabble over here. That might be high for a lot of you guys. And most of you guys, this should probably be in real estate, like 70, 20, 10, I would say. Like is probably the right mix for most agents, like 70% tried and true, Sphere, open houses, right? Like that kind of thing. 20% like door knock, expireds, whatever. And then 10% like threads, right? Like maybe that's where you go with it. So I think that's a big thing for a lot of people is you don't believe everything you hear or see. And some of those people, they're not lying to you. Half of them are lying to you, and then there's another percentage of them that aren't lying. They're just not telling you the whole truth. They're not telling you that they're actually making $0 or that they hate their freaking life because they're working 80 hours a week, and they're not telling you all of that when they're up there. So just be cautious about what you hear on stage.
But not what you hear on this podcast.
Yeah.
This podcast, true.
we shoot very straight. I don't need to hide anything. So you can ask me anything. I'll shoot very straight with you. So I think that's a big thing, though, is you don't need to go do all of this. I think you focus, again, let's go 70, 20, 10. For most agents is probably the right mixture of safe and conservative, moderate and high risk.
Cool. Very cool.
Let's go where you wanted it to.
I was curious. What I love about these podcasts, I'm like, I wonder what Kyle thinks about this. I'll ask him on the podcast. So yeah, I went exactly where I wanted to.
Cool. Well, hopefully you guys got some value out of this. If you are listening on a podcast platform, if you could hook us up with a review when you're done with this, it would really mean a lot to us. We really appreciate that. It's hard to get reviews on podcasts, so it means a lot. And also, obviously, make sure to subscribe. And then if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast. If you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up button. If you have questions, throw it in the comment section. And if you want more of the content, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell, and YouTube will take care of the rest. Before we wrap up the show today, we like to do something we call the Whissel Widget of the Week. This is something we utilize in our business. It either saves us time, makes us more money, or just helps us have more fun. You're up.
Okay. I was waiting for you to throw it to me. Anyways, today I did a coaching call, and I was talking about the importance of having written, documented SOPs or checklists, especially as you grow your team. It gives you the ability to grow. It gives you the ability to not rely on a single key employee, that person's the only one who knows how to use the CRM. So that way, if they quit or go on vacation, you're totally screwed. And I was talking about some different ways to do this and doing checklists on paper or whatever. And I was reminded about a product that we've used in the past that's pretty cool. And it's called Scribe. The website is scribehow.com. And what you do is there's a free version and a paid version. What you do is you say, okay, basically record my screen. And as you go through and do things, it will take screenshots when you click. It'll take screenshots of what you type. It will give you, once you hit stop, it'll tell you the step by step. First do this, then do this, then do this. You can rename it. So if you're like, 123 Main Street, and it says, type in 123 Main Street. Type in the property address here. And all that's with the free version. The paid version, you can redo screenshots and all sorts of different things. But it's great if you're teaching a new hire how to do something. It's great if I love it for having your team members do it. So, hey, this is the process that you do over and over and over again. Document it. So that way when you go on vacation, or that way when we hire a new person, they can pick up and take off with it without you having to spend 3 hours teaching them. So scribehow.com is my widget.
Cool. Mine will tie in. I already mentioned it a couple times through here, but let's talk about the 10%, right? That you're going to dabble in something and try something out that's on the higher end of the risk scale. And the one we have to talk about is Threads from Instagram, or from Meta more specifically. That is the new Twitter competitor, is what it's kind of billed as. I think you have to dabble in it, right? I don't know that we need another social media platform. I think we need one like we need another hole in our head. So I don't know that we necessarily need another platform, but I'm not going to ignore the platform either. And the thing that I've found that I like the most about it is I can post something in there, but then I can carry it over into Instagram, and the two kind of work symbiotically. Now, why are there two separate platforms? I don't know. I have a feeling that they might all merge together at some point, but it just got a lot more attention back on Meta and in Insta. So I think it's something that's absolutely worth paying attention to. I think it's something worth dabbling in. And some of these platforms, you could jump into these things, and, they like Clubhouse, like that. Sure, that's not nearly as popular as it was, but there's some people Our boy William Tong like got super freaking famous, right? Built a lot of celebrity from Clubhouse, even though it bombed, relatively speaking. That turned into something great. I mean, Grant Cardone and his wife Elena became a part of EXP because of Clubhouse. Like, there's a lot of things that happen. So even though that platform didn't have staying power, there were a lot of great things that came from it from those that were early adopters. Like our founder Glenn was on there a lot, and Grant was on there a lot, and they built this relationship. And Grant's doing stuff with the company. Elena's a part of the company. Like, it's really cool what came out of that. So even though that didn't continue, great things came out of that, and this might be one of those, and this might take off and shut Twitter down. That could happen. It could fall off like Clubhouse did. But even if it falls off, great things came out of Clubhouse. So I think you should have some time, some attention, some focus on it, see where it goes, and if it takes off, you know more than the people who were like, I don't need it, and now they're starting from scratch, and you already got a good hold on what's going on there. So Threads from Meta.
Yeah, what I found is the easiest time to get followers is when it's brand new and everyone's jumping on, everyone's following everyone they know. So it's a great time to start and try it out. And you mentioned Gary Vee earlier in the episode. And I don't remember what he was talking, which platform that didn't have staying power that he used, but he said he tried one. He spent a lot of time and energy on it, and then it totally collapsed. And it was like, oh.
Tumblr.
No, it was a precursor to Vine.
Okay.
And then Vine came out, and he already had the skills necessary, and so he didn't have a learning curve. He just used what he already learned. So maybe it might not work well long term for this particular platform, but Twitter has proven that it's been around for a while. It's time that someone else came out, and maybe this is Instagram's 10%. They're 20% of trying new stuff out. So cool.
All right. Awesome. Well, hopefully you guys got a lot of value out of the show today. Again, I'm Kyle Whissel with eXp Realty here in San Diego.
I'm Bryan Kochi.
We'll see you next week. Wait. Before you leave, I want to share some more tips and tricks that we're using in our business to take it to that next level. Just click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Click right here.